I'm Zach, and this is my running story. To begin, we're going to have to rewind all the way back to 2008. So back in 2008, I was 8 years old and I was in the 3rd grade. And this was a special year to me because at my elementary school, we had this thing called the Golden Shoe. And it was basically a test to see how far you could run in 6 minutes. And I was always the kid at recess that would be running around the track rather than playing on the playground. And so I went out that year and I wore my Nikes rather than my Vans, and I set the school record. And this was a big moment for me because I'd always loved football and I'd always thought I was kind of good at running, but this really cemented the idea in my mind, and so I put 2 and 2 together and decided to play football. I wanted to be a running back. And of course, with my parents being the type of parents who never hold me back from my dreams, they let me play football, and I played up until middle school, but that leads me to chapter 2, middle school. So once I began playing middle school football, I realized that I was tiny. I was 70 pounds and the skinniest and most lanky kid on the entire field, and so I decided to quit. Being mauled by 220-pound kids was definitely not optimal and not the route I wanted to take in my life. So I decided to put my cleats away and join the middle school track team. So my 6th grade year, I trained for about 2 weeks before tryouts, and I basically just ran like a mile a day around this loop in my neighborhood. And when I went out for tryouts, I ran one of the fastest mile times, but for some reason my coach decided to put me in the 800-meter run. And obviously I'm not a fast guy, I'm more of a distance guy, and so this wasn't the race for me. And I always was wondering why he did that and why I couldn't run the mile, and I would always ask him, can I run the mile? Because I knew I'd be so much better with the distance. But for some reason that didn't work out, and he kept me in the 800. I ended up running 2:39, which I was super happy about, but it's just crazy to see how much I've improved since then. So when 7th grade track rolled around, my favorite teacher, Mrs. Liss, decided to take over coaching the track team. And this was a big moment for me because she knew that I loved the mile and she knew that I wanted to run it so badly, and she finally put me in it. And during my first race, I believe I ran 5:43 or 5:42, somewhere around there, and I was super hyped because I finally broke 6, which is a big milestone for me. And after that, we had this race where I raced my friend Jacob Spears. He was on my team, but we always had that competitiveness between us, and basically he started out the race going really hard. He dropped me about 800 meters, and I was really concerned that I was out of the race. But when the final lap came around, he was kind of dying out a bit and starting to come back towards me. So I gained confidence and I started moving. And the last 200 meters, I closed down the gap and we ended up tying the race. And I was so proud of that 5:33 that I actually went on Twitter and tweeted it out. And I think my sister was so embarrassed that she made me delete the tweet. But, that was middle school. And a couple weeks after that race, my future high school coach came to the middle school and gave us all a talk about how we could run cross country as an 8th grader. And I was super excited about this opportunity because my dad ran cross country in high school and college, and my sister was currently on the team. So it was pretty obvious that I was going to be doing this. So that leads me to chapter 3, 8th grade cross country. So my 8th grade year, I ended up coming into August training with 1 summer practice under my belt. I thought that, I did really well in middle school, so I think I can just come into this and be killing it. But I was quickly humbled by the amazing guys that were on the team. The group of guys were mostly composed of seniors and juniors, and they ended up winning cross country states that year. So needless to say, it was really hard to keep up with them. But by the end of the season, I ended up being able to hang with them for some of the runs. And if you're wondering about my times, well, I started out with a 19:59, my first race. And I refined my strategy a bit and got better at training and got a little bit more miles under my belt. I ended up running an 18:07 by the end of the season. And this put me in the top 3 for 8th graders in my area, which was a pretty crazy feeling at the time. After I ran that time, the guys on the team came to me and told me about this cool opportunity called New Balance Indoor Nationals. And basically it's the national indoor meet up in New York at the Armory, and there's this thing called the 8th grade mile there, where basically all of the 8th graders that run indoor track get an opportunity to run this mile if you run under 5:15. My coach finally put me in a race where I could run on an indoor track, and I was expecting it to be just like all those polar bear meets, but it was much different. and I ended up just barely sneaking under the time of 5:15 with a 5:14. So yeah, that was scary, and I was super excited to go, so I started training even harder than ever, and I was getting amped for the race. A couple weeks out, I started feeling this pain in my Achilles, and it started to progress into swelling and inflammation. And a week before, I decided to go to a podiatrist, and they told me that I was injured. I had Achilles tendonitis, and well, I couldn't run, or I may rupture my Achilles tendon and lose 1/4 strength forever. Training so hard to then lose everything was awful. And so this leads me to the next chapter. Chapter 4, injury. So my injury lasted for 8 months, which is a lot longer than most people have injuries for. And this was probably a mixture of me being ignorant and not doing all of the things I could to recover and just not really knowing what to do. But I went to a PT, I went to another PT, I went to another PT, I went to an orthopedic surgeon who ended up putting me in boots on both legs for 3 weeks, which was awful, and it didn't work. And then I ended up going to this guy named Milan Laster, and he prescribed me to laser therapy, KT taping, and grafting. And these seemed a lot different than all the other treatments that people had tried, but it worked. And so once I got back to running, it was an odd experience because I had literally forgotten how to run. And that sounds crazy, but if you don't run for 8 months, you'll know what I'm talking about. And so my freshman year was quite a struggle. The only cross-country race I ended up running was my longest run of that season. So for the indoor and outdoor track season, my goal was really just to break 5. I knew that my season wasn't going to be incredible, but I knew that this was a big goal of mine and something that I really could take down. Throughout those 2 seasons, I worked really hard and I got super close to sub 5. I ran 5:02, 5:01, 5 flat, and then I finally ran 4:58. And it was just an incredible feeling to be back in control of my body and know that I'm a bit healthier. I can run sub 5, like that's a huge accomplishment. And it really powered me into the next cross-country season. So that leads me to chapter 5, my comeback season. This season started out with a really good summer. I got solid training under my belt and didn't have many hiccups. After the first race, my goal was to go sub 17, and I quickly did that. And by the end of the season, I ended up running 16:31, which I was so happy about. And it was even more special because it was faster than my dad's all-time best 5K. And so I had a lot of pride at that time, but it was really great. And going into the indoor season, I had some ambitious goals. I wanted to go sub 10 and run sub 4:35. And sub 10 went down at the first indoor meet when my friend Bashir paced me through at 4:58 and then sub 10. Breaking the 4:35 goal was a little bit different because I was just put in this race that was incredibly fast, and I really wasn't even expecting to accomplish that goal, but the race was incredibly fast and I was just put in a position to run really well, and so I ended up running 4:33, which I was shocked about. After that season concluded, it led me into my junior year, and that's a big year for runners because that's when you run times that coaches will primarily look at, and so this was my big year. But I put this in quotation marks because, well, it didn't go to plan, so let me explain. So my junior year summer started out really well. I trained super hard, there weren't many hiccups, and I thought it would be a big year. As the cross-country season began, I started running really well, and I was super happy with my times, and I got down to 15:55, which was enough to help us win the state championship as a team, and that was just one of the best moments. Knowing that the team worked so hard together and accomplished something so great together, it was just insane, and it really was uplifting, and I'm so lucky to have that experience. And so after that state meet, indoor track rolled around, and I was super eager to race. I was expecting big times because this great cross-country season just meant I was going to run fast, but I didn't run as fast as I had hoped. And so I ended up running 4:28 and 9:40, and I ran both these times at one meet. It was the regional meet, but the meet after that was states, and I really blew up in both of those races. So it wasn't the best indoor season, and I didn't end up placing super well at states. So going into outdoor, I felt a lot of pressure to run fast, and well, I ended up only tying my mile PR, and I actually slowed down in the 2 mile, which was incredibly sad, and it was really rough for me. I was working so hard every day at practice to be as good as I could, and I just kept failing. I would have amazing workouts that would indicate that I could run incredibly fast, and then I just wouldn't perform. I wasn't mentally there, and to be honest, I just wasn't having the best time with track. I don't love track that much, and cross country is really where my heart is. So I wanted to just start training for cross country, but knowing that was Bashir's last season, I really just stuck it out and really made the most of the last bits of the season. And so that took me to my senior season. and my summer training ended up going really well, and I jacked up the miles a ton to really just get in the best shape that I could and hopefully carry that through the next year. And so that cross country season ended up going really well. I ended up dropping down to 15:38 in the 5K, and that was a really good time and something that I could kind of brag about when I went and took official visits at colleges. And that was super critical for me because my track times weren't the best and I kind of needed something to show that I had potential. And so after taking my official visits, I ended up deciding on William & Mary, and I was super excited to go there. It took a lot of weight off my shoulders, and just knowing that I had a college waiting for me, it really let me run free. And so at the state meet for cross country, I ended up winning the race, and it was just one of those days where I had the race of my life. And so coming off that cross country season, I was really on a high. I thought I was about to run some crazy times during indoor, but I ended up getting sick and it really set me back. I just wasn't running the times I thought I could, and it kind of felt like my junior season all over again. At some point between indoor and outdoor, I started reading Tim Wetmore's Running with the Buffalo, and it's about the Colorado Buffaloes cross country season. And I don't know why, but it got me super amped about running track and just running again. So that love for running transpired into my races, and I really started to gain my confidence back. And I also implemented some Saturday and Sunday runs and just added in miles to my training plan that I didn't do in previous years. And this led to some results. Having my mind there and my body there with the extra miles really got me to where I wanted to be. I ended up running 9:28 in the 2 mile and then 4:21 in the mile. And running those times during outdoor really just solidified my career and made me super happy about track and kind of reinvigorated me for summer training. So that's where my YouTube picks up and my old story ends. So that was my entire story, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So as usual, live happy, be healthy. I'll see you in the next video.